So now we come to the seventh day, the day when Yeshua reigns on the earth. And how do we know that he reigns the seventh day? Revelation 20 tells us that there are others who reign with him, and that those people have to be resurrected. So when does this happen? In John 6, Yeshua tells us 3 times that he is going to raise people up at the last day. Then in John 7, John refers to the last day as the great day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now Leviticus 23 tells us that the Feast of Tabernacles is a feast of 7 days, with the 8th day being a holy convocation. And Nehemiah chapter 8 also confirms this. Now in John 11, Martha says Lazarus will rise in the resurrection at the last day. So the saints and martyrs of Yeshua's day are the ones who come to reign with him. Now from my understanding of Revelation 14, the 12 apostles and 144,000 have already been resurrected. So they are definitely coming with Yeshua, leaving the great multitude for the first resurrection. So all who attended the marriage feast of the Lamb are with him when he comes to reign as Lord of the Sabbath. Exodus 35 says no fire is to be kindled on the Sabbath. And in the context of the millennial reign, this command is also speaking prophetically of God's anger subsiding and not being rekindled during that time. However, people will still be dying, even in Jerusalem, although death before 100 will be seen as a penalty for being a sinner. So since people will be dying and death is the result of sin, that means there will be sin present during that time. And there must necessarily be sacrifices for sin when God is present. This brings us to the temple that Yeshua will be building as prophesied in 1 Chronicles 17. I believe this to be Ezekiel's temple, which I will be covering shortly. Now I know it seems strange for there to be sin during the millennial reign, but let's look at some of the things sacrifices are required for. In number 6, the Nazirite is instructed not to come near any dead body. Even if someone were to die unexpectedly while he was nearby, he has to shave his head, offer sacrifices to atone for his sin, and restart his vow as if it had just been taken. So death itself is the epitome of sin, being opposite to God, who is life. Next, let's look at Leviticus 5. Verse 1 says, "And if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing and is a witness, whether he has seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity." So when you see something but don't say something because snitches get stitches, that's a sin. 2, or if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast, or a carcass of an unclean cattle, or the carcass of unclean creeping things, and if it be hidden from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. So if a fly dies in your house and you accidentally step on it, that's a sin. 3, or if he touch the uncleanness of man, whatsoever uncleanness it be that a man shall be defiled with, and it be hid from him, when he knows, then he shall be guilty. The uncleanness of man is defined in Leviticus 15. This includes those things which are natural and even necessary for procreation. Those are sin. So God's view of sin takes the meaning of consecration to a whole different level. And aside from all that, people make mistakes. So the sacrifices cover all of that. Now Ezekiel 34 tells us that David will be prince. But Ezekiel 37, Hosea 3, and Jeremiah 30 all say that David will be king. In fact, Ezekiel 37 says that David will be prince and king. So who is king, Yeshua or David? I believe the answer is both. But how can David be king if Yeshua is king? Yeshua said he does what he sees his father do. So he shares his throne with David, just as his father shares his throne with him. I explained this in Yeshua, Word of Yahuwah, where we began to see the precedent for this in the structure of Israel under Moses. In Exodus 7, Yahuwah makes Moses a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron serves as his prophet. So Yahuwah speaks to Moses, Moses speaks to Aaron, and Aaron speaks to Pharaoh. Then when Israel comes to Elim, they see 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, foreshadowing the 12 princes of the tribes, each heads of thousands, and 70 elders who serve under Moses. So using this precedent, God is, God, the Most High King and ultimate authority. Yeshua, his firstborn, serves as judge, King of Kings, and High Priest of God. David, his firstborn, serves as king and prince. The 12 apostles sit on 12 thrones as captains of the tribes and heads of thousands. The 144,000 are the thousands, and I believe them to be the priests. The 70 disciples I am not completely sure on, but I think they judge as captains of the nations based on Genesis 10, perhaps with a great multitude serving under them, ministering amongst the nations as leaves. As for us, the children of the exile, we learn righteousness and maybe minister within the nation, like when those outside the kingdom come up to worship. I don't know, but I do know this: we will have a job. There is no idleness with God. After that initial training period, he puts you to work. So here you have the entire nation of Israel as a kingdom of priests, holy to Yeshua and keeping his law, and a holy nation, just as he determined in Exodus 19. And even the Sabbath, especially the Sabbath, is a work day for his priests.